Good evening. Did you know Tom Brady is facing the Patriots this week? I didn't know that. I'm Steve Rabinowitz.
I'm Jay Kaplan, and I knew that.
And I'm Anthony Strait. I don't care. I just can't wait to get back, watch Transformers or something like that. I can care less about Tom Brady right now.
I don't care either. This is something we will not be talking about this week. Welcome to the Hunt for Red October edition of On the Sports Lines. Sean Connery accent not needed. You didn't ask for it, but I gave it to you. All right. So we have to talk about the Giants and the Jets later on in this show, whose season is clearly in.
Really?
Yeah, we're contractually obligated.
Well, their season is clearly in clear and present danger. And yes, we also have to talk about the Mets, whose fans have realized the sum of all fears with another empty October, and the MLB Wild Card races, which are the op center in MLB's attention span.
Love the Clancy references, Rabbi. Well done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's start with the Yankees, who went up to Boston, played some wicked Patriot games. Okay, I'm done. And swept the Boston Red Sox.
Love it.
They have beaten the Blue Jays in their first of a 3-game series. Currently 5-5 in the top of the eighth inning in their second game now, overcoming a bad start by Garrett Cole, but he went 6, so And they currently were tied with the Sox for the wild card. Now they have a 2-game cushion for that first wild card spot with 5 to play, and a 3-game cushion to getting a wild card spot. Their magic number is 3. As the Yankees enter the stretch drive, we ask the simple question, barring the obvious, Aroldis Chapman, Garrett Cole, Aaron Judge, and the superhuman, what the hell is this man made of, Giancarlo Stanton? And I would like to know, I guess he was crushing too many people in Little League. Who needs to step up in the final week of the season for the Yankees? Let's start with Jay.
And the secondary player or pitcher that I'm looking at is Gleyber Torres. There's an old adage in sports that sometimes all an underperforming player needs is a change of scenery. Sam Darnold immediately comes to mind, but rarely has a player just needed a change of position.
You're just really pissing off New York this week when you just mentioned Sam Darnold already within the first few minutes of the show.
Hey, it's the obvious. It's the Captain Obvious one, Rabbi. It's the first one that jumped into my head when I was doing this. But rarely has a player just needed a change of position. And yet for Torres, all he seemed to need was to move back to second base from shortstop, as he did on the 13th of September. Sure, Torres has been hitting well for most of September, and his August is pretty solid as well. So saying that the change of position has been the reason for his resurgence may not be totally correct. But as those of us who've covered the game know, plenty of players take their struggles in the field to the plate with them. Torres has an example in his own locker room with teammate Gary Sanchez having that issue in more than one season. Torres has started to hit the way he was expected to, and closer to his all-star seasons of 2018 and 2019 since the change of position. With a slash line of 298, 389, 404 coming into this series with Toronto with an OPS of 793 and a batting average on balls hit in play of 361. Prior to the move, he had a slash line of 252, 323, 352 with an OPS of 676 and a batting average balls put in play of 306. His defense has also improved, only having made 1 error in 52 chances. That's a 981 fielding percentage since moving to the other side of the Keystone Sack as compared to 18 in 375 chances. That's a 952 fielding percentage before the move. As manager Aaron Boone said last week in response to a question about Torres' improvement at the plate being directly related to his change of position, here's the quote: "That's an impossible question to answer, knowing there may be something to it. It may just be a good player starting to lock in at this time of year, or a little bit of both. It's impossible for me or anyone to say for certain why somebody is doing something, but all I know is that he's playing really well for us right now," end quote. But whatever the reason, guys, having Torres comfortable and confident with both the glove and the bat can only improve things for the Yankees at the most crucial time of the year. His success, along with strong offensive weeks from other supporting players like Gio Urshela and Anthony Rizzo, lengthens and strengthens the Yankee lineup around Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton, forcing opposing pitchers to deal with the Bronx's top 2 bombers instead of working around them. look, the best case for the scenario for the Yankees is to clinch the wild card this week in this series against the Blue Jays. As the rabbi said, 2-game lead for the first spot over Boston, 3-game lead over Toronto coming into tonight before they end the season against the Rays, which would allow them to relax and get the lineup and rotation set for the postseason. Torres keeping up this solid level of all-around play will be key to that.
Anthony, let's talk about another player on the hot
Well, my secondary player is actually going to be Jordan Montgomery. And you do feel like this. If there's anything that's been a question mark for the Yankees have been, what do the pitch rotation give them after Garrett Cole once every 5 days? And Montgomery's been very consistent this season. Look, he doesn't have overpowering stuff, but he will throw strikes. He doesn't walk much, and he will pitch to contact and get outs. So that's very important when you're playing Yankee Stadium of all places. Look, he's allowed 3 or fewer runs in 23 of his 28 starts this season. ERA just under 4 heading into that Sunday night start against Boston. And look, outside of a bad start last month in Citi Field against the Mets, he's actually been pretty good. You know, he allowed just 2 runs over 11 in a third innings, 18 strikeouts like in his previous 2 starts against Baltimore and Texas, respectively. Sunday night, he was solid, just allowed the no runs in let's see right here. He allowed 1 run and 71 pitches and scattered 7 hits that were scattered across a handful of innings. He's been very solid. He's been very consistent. But I'm looking at he's going to get one more start at the end of the season, more likely be this weekend against Tampa to close out the regular season. But I'm also thinking about if the Yankees, obviously, they could be one of the wild card teams if they win in advance. Do you start Montgomery for a game 2 or possibly game 3 back at home? I just look at like Jordan Montgomery has earned the opportunity to be a number 2 guy in the division series rotation. But I mean, if it comes down to it, I feel confident. I feel confident that Montgomery could close the door on a playoff ball for the Yankees. If it comes down to it this weekend, obviously they're playing right now. They're tied. They have 1 more against Toronto. But Montgomery's performance Sunday night and closed out that 3-game sweep in Fenway went a long way as far as the Yankees really putting themselves in a great position going into the final 6 games to lock up the wild card before Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, you know, how with the game 2, Cole's going to be pitching the wild card game because rumor has it if you don't win that game, your season's over. He'll probably be pitching in game 1 right now because I don't think the Yankees would have faith in a Jameson Taillon or Corey Kluber. Well, Taillon's hurt again. That's right. Taillon got hurt last night again. So
hurt his ankle. Kluber is still rounding into form. The guy, well, I'll tell you, if the Yankees
Cortez maybe
he's on the radar, but he's been great the last month and a half. So he's been
either one would probably be your game 1 starter, and God forbid if the Yankees have to play a tiebreaker game just to get to that wild card, he might be pitching a wild card game. So with the Yankees, it's just hope and pray. So sometimes when it comes to the pitching and hope to get to the 6th or 7th. I'm looking at Gary Sanchez, though. Sanchez has been a very interesting player this season. His numbers are better. Yeah, interesting because he's always pretty much the ire of almost every Yankee fan. If it's not your pick earlier, Jay, it's Sanchez.
His second year on the team.
211 this season, 23 home runs, 54 RBIs, and then they have 108 strikeouts. You have to decide what to do with him now. Also, that's a problem because he's up for a contract. He's up for a new contract. Kyle Higashioka, who is still Garrett Cole's personal catcher and hit a huge, although now it's just 6-5 Toronto. But Higashioka had tied that game earlier in the night. He's still a terrible hitter. He's still hitting below the Mendoza line. But you have to say
as effective with the bat as he was last season.
No, but you don't expect him to because he's not a hitter. He is basically, if there was ever a what's the word, a designated fielder, that would be Kyle Higashioka. He calls a game better than Sanchez. He fields a game better than Sanchez, and he doesn't make mistakes. However, the Yankees have 4 prospects in their system that are catchers. 4 of their top 30 prospects are catchers. Their number 6 guy is a catcher. So this is going to be a huge thing for the offseason because eventually we do have to think about that. So Gary Sanchez needs one more run in him, and hopefully it comes this weekend. Hopefully for him, it comes in the wild card game, possibly. He needs to continue hitting in big spots and prove to Yankee management that he's deserving of staying with this team beyond 2021.
Well, Rabbi, I mean, I don't know how telling it is, and I'm sure somebody in the media will blow it out of proportion. You know, with second and third and 2 outs, the camera panned the Yankee dugout, and Sanchez had a bat in his hand, but Booney sent up Higashioka. Turned out to be the right call, but it's somebody's going to make more out of that than there probably is. So
yeah, and it's an interesting choice to keep Higashioka in because, again, who knows? But he's been there to get big hits. But again, you can't really justify having 2 people who constantly hit under 200 in the same lineup. All right,
yeah, but right now I'm more concerned about having somebody who can actually get, young Mr. Bichette out, hit his 7th home run against the Yankees just now to break that tie in the.
Yeah, and by the way, just to throw it out there, I love these Blue Jays uniforms. I feel like George Bell is going to
1977 all over again, man. That's throwback, man.
Yeah, that is Memorial Stadium well before the Sky Dome was built.
That's like inaugural year. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Man. All right, let's move on. The New York Mets. I know Anthony has heard. They need to be talked about. I know Anthony has heard this stat, but I'm going to repeat it for Jay and everybody else. They are the first team ever to spend more than 103 days in first place.
Yes,
and have a losing record.
I read that stat today, Rabbi. It's a great stat.
What can you say? But the best day for Mets fans might be October 4th. That's the first day of the offseason where they don't have to worry about Mets disappointment for the rest of the year. Anthony, that starts the to-do list for the Metropolitans. Take a pen and start filling it out for us.
Well, the first thing to do, the first thing to do for the Mets is figure out who they're going to bring back next season in that clubhouse. It starts with Javi Baez for obvious reasons. I mean, you think about this, with the Mets, his batting average has actually improved. He's showing more patience at the plate. He's batting over 300, along with 9 home runs and 22 RBIs. And his defense has actually been just as good. I saw a couple of hiccups against the Yankees that was a couple of errors. His defense has been solid, and he brings the attitude and the moxie that's kind of lacking from this Met team. As far as just from a confidence booster standpoint, and obviously with his friendship with Francisco Lindor and that aspect, you would think the Mets would want to keep him long term and kind of keep the middle of that infield short up for a very long time, but particularly on defense, because surprisingly coming into this season, one of the biggest question marks turned out to be a strength. The Mets are actually top 5 defensively. It's the offense where they were historically bad team. You talked about how the Yankees can't have 2 guys that's batting below 200. It felt like that every night for the Mets. And when you talk about batting barely above the Mendoza line, y'all talking about Michael Conforto and Noah Syndergaard, 2 guys who are going to be free agents, but can't get qualifying offers. And if you're the Mets, Syndergaard pitched 1 inning was the last night. Do you bring him back? I mean, if you're the Mets, maybe Syndergaard is made it known he wants to stay at Citi Field. You already got question marks as far as Jacob deGrom. Maybe you want to bring him back in as a security blanket. Conforto's another story because of you have guys that are going to be free agents, primarily like Chris Bryant, someone the Mets had targeted during the trading deadline, available. You probably want to keep some kind of room under the luxury tax. You'll probably see the last games of Michael Conforto's Mets career. And Marcus Strom is another guy who is a free agent who can walk after the season. And do the Mets bring him back? He's been a solid pitcher. He's actually been pretty consistent for most of the year. But at the end of the first half, you could have made the argument that he and that Tyrone Walker could have been All-Star. But obviously, like with the rest of the Mets, his performance has tailed off a little bit. And when he's had good performances, the offense has not been able to back him up, or the bullpen not able to hold a lead. So there's a lot of question marks as far as who did the Mets bring back. They've already spent at least some people would say overspent, but James McCann from to bat belly over 230 for the season, missed a lot of games. And the thing is with the Mets is that when you look at what is the downfall of this team, and as far as offense, Baez obviously gives you so much offense, but he doesn't hit the average on a team that really needs guys who can get on base. And the question is, if you're the Mets, where do you find that? And then where do you show up your rotation if Jacob deGrom isn't the Jacob deGrom of old, or if he's not available to start the year? So, there's a lot of question marks going into a team that, for what it's worth, it's going to be a long off season in Flushing.
It absolutely is. It is. And I think one thing that Baez we thought would bring to the team, along with consistent hitting, which is not there, is the fact that it would help out Francisco Lindor and kind of stabilize him, when in fact it's done the opposite. It's almost made him more immature. And you'd have to say maybe Javi Baez is just not fit for New York, and he's more fit maybe to
not every
bad influence, maybe.
We'll see what happens. It's definitely not a good influence. Let's continue on with Jay and Sandy Alderson.
For me, the first thing on the Mets to-do list has to be hire the guy who's going to make those decisions on who stays and who goes. And that's, a president of baseball operations. When Sandy Alderson agreed to work for new Mets owner Steve Cohen, his goal was to hire a person for that position who would then hire a general manager under him, so Alderson wouldn't have to be involved in the day-to-day on that side of the playground and could focus more on the business side. They couldn't seem to find someone to fill the president role, so they pivoted to hiring a GM who would report to Alderson until they could fill the president role or groom said GM to become the president of baseball ops. They failed twice and in epic fashion each time. The first time, obviously, was Jared Porter, who was fired after harassing texts to a female journalist back in 2016 when he was with the Cubs were revealed. He'd been on the job a whole 37 days. The second time was Zach Scott, who was hired as Porter's top assistant in December after finishing as runner-up for the GM job. Scott would have likely had the acting removed from his title and become the GM had he not been arrested on DWI charges in late August. He's currently on administrative leave, and his future in the organization is murky. Last November, when Alderson laid out the plan for the baseball side, he said that while he would have a seat at the table, he didn't expect it to be at the head of the table. As this season comes to an end, he is the table. The third time has to be the charm for the Mets, and Alderson cannot get this wrong again. It's not going to be easy, guys. We're in an era where front office people like a VP or president of baseball operations or a GM are highly valued. So teams do whatever they can to prevent those people from interviewing with other teams, let alone letting them get away. Andrew Baggerly wrote a really good story about this for The Athletic earlier this month, and he noted that the simplest strategy that teams use to keep their people has been to engage in something called title inflation. You promote a GM to president of baseball operations. You promote the assistant GM to the GM chair. And, that little adjustment is all it takes to turn a potential promotion with another team into a lateral move and thus pretty much deny other teams permission to talk to your people as a result. Look, I know that Mets fans would love to have Theo Epstein come on board and revive their team the way he did with the Red Sox and the Cubs. But by all reports, Epstein is very happy with his current role with the commissioner's office. Personally, I'd love to see them pry Billy Beane away from the A's. We know the success he's had in Oakland, 25 years running the baseball operations on a budget that Cohen could probably find in his couch cushions, as well as the connection he has with the Mets and Alderson. The Mets picked Bean with the 23rd overall choice in the 1980 draft. That's the same draft that netted them Darryl Strawberry. Bean had cups of coffee with the team in 84 and 85, but he never fulfilled the potential that scouts saw in him. In April of 1990, rather than accept reassignment to the A's minor league camp, he asked to become an advanced scout. Alderson, who was the head of baseball ops at that time, agreed to the request, and that began Bean's career in baseball operations. Almost 20 years later, Bean paid Alderson back, hiring him as a senior advisor in the baseball operations department, a position Alderson held until leaving after the 2020 season to return to the Mets to work for Cohen. As you know, the Mets had as we all know, the Mets had previously employed Alderson as their GM from 2010 to 2018. Another reunion between these two guys would allow Alderson to end his career as a respected voice in baseball operations instead of the failed executive he looks like right now. Look, Bean would need to divest his minority ownership in the A's if he left for the Mets, but unlike Epstein, he probably won't require a similar commitment from Cohen. Hiring Bean away from the A's would be step one in returning some credibility to the Mets organization, something it desperately needs.
Yeah, first of all, trivia time, since I did actually just watch some part of the Mets the Mets documentary. Who did Billy Bean get traded for from the 1986 team? Ooh. In 1985, Billy Bean got traded. Who did he get traded for? He got traded for two people, but one member of the Mets 86 team is who I'm looking.
Why do I want to say Kevin Mitchell?
It's not.
No. Well, okay.
Anthony?
Who did he get traded to, Rabbi?
Well, he got traded to the Twins, I believe. Yeah, he got traded to the Twins.
Okay.
Any answers?
All right. You know what?
I'm done.
Wait.
It's on my tongue.
Wait, hang on. Tim Tuffle?
It's on. Yes, it is Tim Tuffle.
You said Minnesota.
It is Tim Tuffle.
God,
good move. Also, I don't know what Billy Bean would be like with this team. I don't know if Billy Bean is a big market general manager. And yes, I know Theo is very happy in his current spot, but the one thing that Steve Cohen has is the almighty green. And he's going to, if he wants Theo Epstein, all Epstein is going to need is the drive. That's what's going to do it.
Rabbi, Theo Epstein's going to want an ownership stake, and I don't know if that's a bridge too far for Cohen.
We'll see what happens. Right. But to go with that, Bean could easily bring in Bob Melvin onto his staff, which brings us to Luis Rojas. Mm-hmm. He's gone. Let's just say this straight up. I'd be very shocked if he was the manager of this team in 2022. And even in a press conference today, Sandy Alderson has said the Mets will not wait until they've hired a new president of baseball operations to decide on their managerial situation. That's not going to be an issue. They will make a thumbs up or thumbs down decision on Luis Rojas. And he seems to have been over his head in many of situations as his time as New York Mets manager when it comes to lineup stuff, when it comes to managing the bullpen. There's a reason why Rojas right now has a career 101 and 116 record and is only won 46% of his games. Yes, he's only had a season and a half at the helm, but guess what? Mickey Callaway had 2 seasons at the helm and almost everybody wanted him out. We kind of have seen that Rojas just may not be a major league manager right now. He might be a bench coach person, and this is probably not the place for him to manage. I'd be shocked to see him in this organization in 2022. And like I said, you bring in Billy Bean, you get Bob Melvin. How about a respected manager in this day and age, in Buck Showalter? He brings an old school mentality to the team, but he would certainly be a good choice. There are a lot of better and more experienced choices than Luis Rojas, and the Mets need someone with experience, plain and simple.
And Rabbi, I also think the Mets need to hire someone with a name, which also means they have a resume, and
which they can, by the way, now because of the owner having very, very deep pockets.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, look, I understand that, like, they were caught off guard with the Beltran thing. So they kind of took the path of least resistance. But, you're past that now. And you can say, well, just because it's the biggest market in the world doesn't mean, you have to have a manager with a name. But I'm sorry, you need a veteran in this market, someone who can deal not only with what goes on the field and inside the clubhouse, but also the ability to deal with the media, because as we have seen, the New York media can and will and has eaten first-time managers alive, especially if the Mets are underperforming.
Hey, look, right now, if you're talking about names, as far as front office, I'll take Brad Pitt playing the role of Billy Beane for this job at this point. I mean, like I said,
that, brother.
As a long-suffering Met fan who was so happy to be in first place for 3 months and to watch this team fold like it's nobody's business.
Like
it is painful it is painful to watch right now. Like, you just want this season to be over it already. It's just like, by the way, SNY didn't do me any favors by posting a throwback of the Mets winning the NL East 6 years to the day they were eliminated from playoff contention this past weekend. I mean, it was almost like kicking us while we're down. That's pretty much what it is about. But yeah, I mean, the Mets just need to basically restock and reload during the offseason. New manager, a new GM, and a new mentality as far as this organization is. I mean, it can't be same old Mets every year. It's got to be something different.
Yeah. By the way, the Yankees ended up losing that game 6-5 on that home run by Bichette. It held up. So the Yankees are about to be 1 game ahead of the Red Sox, 2 games ahead of the Blue Jays. Yes, that's why I said about to be 1 game up ahead of the Red Sox, 2 games up on the Blue Jays, and probably 2 games up on the Mariners when this night is over. Okay. So here's a segment that really just went off the rails already because the Braves didn't do their job and lose. On to the winners. There are 2 races left to look at in MLB. We've already looked at the AL Wild Card. The other 4 divisions feel like that they've been decided since the NBA was still going on. It ended July 20th. And yes, if you look at the divisions, I'm not exaggerating. They've been long done. Let's start with Anthony with that division that the Mets had led for 103 days. Sorry, I had to mention that again. I'm not original. I had nothing else.
So long ago.
No, I mean, you have to bring it up. You have to bring it up because it is such a mind-numbing and a historical fact. I mean, it is unbelievable that what the Mets have done this season, like a complete 180. But going back to the National League East, it was coming into this week was the Braves and the Phillies only being separated by 2.5 games. If you're the Braves, you're looking at everything you've done, and I was joking with Jay with this on our production meeting. Atlanta had to be looking at themselves like, okay, how are we not 6-7 games up at this point in the junction for as good as we played? Well, when the Phillies go 9-4 against the Cubs, Mets, Orioles, and Pirates, respectively, that would keep them hanging around. And obviously, the Braves with a run differential that's actually 95 runs better than the Phillies coming into this stretch. You would think they will run away with the division, but obviously, 3 games, crucial 3 games in Atlanta that pretty much is going to determine the NL East pennant. And Charlie Morton got the Braves off to a great start last night. 7 strong innings, struck out 10, no runs, and a pitcher's duel. I mean, he won his game. He won 2-1, outdoor Zach Wheeler. The Braves survived a very scary 9th inning where the Phillies had more than enough opportunities, not just tie the game, but take the lead. They just weren't able to come away with a big hit. Didi Gregorius fly ball fell about maybe 5 feet short of the outfield wall and right center field. And tonight, and obviously that's what we're taping right now, they're up 7-2, and the Phillies need to take at least 2 out of 3 in this series to really have a decent shot at catching Atlanta and passing them going into the final weekend. Well, ironically, they will need the help from the Mets of all teams in order to win the NL East. But right now, the Braves are taking care of their business. their magic number coming into tonight was 3. It'll be down to 2 if they can hold on and win this game going into tomorrow night.
Down to 1 be down to 1, by the way.
Will be
down
1
to 2.
actually, yes, because it's the tiebreaker. Well, I mean, this division could be over by Friday morning, pretty much. I mean, Atlanta, but what the Braves has done this year, after losing Ronald Acuna and having just really struggling with injuries, this off and on, to be able to piece together the second half run they've done really since August 1st. And it started in Citi Field. I mean, remember they had that 5-game series against the Mets, and they were able to take 3 of those 5 games. That kind of righted the ship a little bit, and we did see the Mets start to struggle. Going after that, and then they went down to Miami, got swept, and it kind of opened the floodgates for the Braves to kind of, pass them at some point. And Atlanta, they're going to be a tough out the way they're playing. They're playing with house money. They're playing with a lot of momentum. Like I said, when they go into the playoffs, however, the Atlanta Braves' biggest obstacle is going to be their own playoff history. They haven't done well as far when they got to the playoffs. And we know about last year's.
We know about last year, but the one thing I would have to say is Milwaukee is going to be there. First of all, shame on the rest of the NL East. This is the 1 year to knock Atlanta off of that perch because of the Acuna injury, and they didn't do it. Atlanta is going to lead this division for many, 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 many years to come. And by the way, an Atlanta-Milwaukee series will be very interesting. It's going to be by far the undercard to what we'll see in the other wild card series.
But doesn't it feel like the Brewers had kind of like clinched the division way back in July 4th or July 5th?
Like I said,
it's been a very long time since we talked about the Brewers.
The Brewers, the Astros, the White Sox, and to a certain extent, at least since August, the Rays have both have clinched their division so early on that we haven't really talked about them. The next time we'll talk about them is probably next week when the playoffs begin.
Yep.
Jay, the NL West is about to be a very, very historic race going down to the wire. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm sorry, but to my way of thinking, based on how things are at the moment, Atlanta, Milwaukee should be the 1-game NL wild card. It's a shame that the NL West loser and the Cardinals only get to play 1 game against each other in the postseason. That would be a hell of a series. But
wait, Cardinals should have won more games in the regular season to get to the point where they didn't need to get to
now. Playing hot right now. But as you alluded, Rabbi, NL West, which is the Giants against the Dodgers, and we said way back in April that the Dodgers would be battling a fellow resident of California for the National League West crown. We just thought it would be their neighbors to the south, not their neighbors to the north. Both teams have already topped 100 wins. San Francisco is 103-54 coming into tonight's play. Los Angeles is 101-56, 2 games back. Shades of 1993 when the Giants lost out on the playoffs by 1 game to the Atlanta Braves. Yes, back then the Braves were in the West. There were only 2 divisions still back then, despite winning 103 games. Both these teams have already clinched playoff berths, but the division is still on the line, and neither team wants to play the St. Louis Cardinals, the hottest team in baseball. They have this 17-game winning streak in a 1-game winner-take-all wild card game. This has been an old-school pennant race with 2 great teams battling down to the wire. For me, it evokes memories of 1951. No, Rabbi, I was not alive to see it in person.
just barely not alive. But yes, we will give you that.
Thank you. When the New York Giants came from 13 down to beat the Brooklyn Dodgers for the National League pennant, and Bobby Thompson shot heard around the world. This version of the Giants has been in first place in the NL West every day since May 31st, except for 2. The Dodgers were tied with them on September 2nd and September 4th. The lead hasn't been larger than 2.5 games since August 18th. The Giants have been paced by their batting order, which has a slash line of 278, 362, 492 in September. Second best OPS in the majors for the month, trailing only the Blue Jays. The Dodgers have been paced by their pitching staff, which has allowed the fewest runs in the majors in September, and have a 2.77 ERA for the month. Both teams were off on Monday, and they close out the season with 6-game homestands. Giants have 3 against the Diamondbacks, second one tonight, and finish up with 3 against the Padres. The Dodgers start with 3 against the Padres, 1 game already in the books, and they finish against Milwaukee. The Giants' magic number is 4, and they definitely have the easier schedule on paper, playing the 107, now 108 lost Diamondbacks. The Dodgers may get a break playing a Brewers team that has already clinched their division, as Rabbi said, pretty much, since right after the All-Star break, and are probably more concerned with setting themselves up for the postseason than spoiling the Dodgers' chance at their 9th straight NL West title. The Padres get both teams back-to-back, and if they can contain their recent dysfunction, would probably love to play spoiler and make the last week of the season a rough one for their fellow Californians. Each team has a storyline regarding a key player as they finish out the regular season. The Giants suffered a big loss with unofficial captain Brandon Belt going on the injured list with a fractured thumb that will likely keep the slugging first baseman out until the World Series at latest, if the Giants make it that far, as the injury has a 4-week recovery time. Belt missed 45 games earlier this season due to an oblique strain and a jammed knee, putting a damper on one of the best seasons, the best season of his career. He's only managed to play 97 games, but he hit 29 homers, drove in 59 runs, scored 65 with a slash line of 274, 378, 597. That's an OPS of 975. The Giants have enough depth to fill Belt's spot in the lineup and at first base. They've done it before, as I noted. But losing your clubhouse leader at a time like this is a huge blow. How will the Giants be affected? Will Buster Posey, Mike Yastrzemski, and company be able to stave off the Dodgers and win the National League West? Remains to be seen. Speaking of the Dodgers, they got a big lift from the return to form, not from injury, but form, of starter Walker Buehler, who was a huge reason the Dodgers are the defending World Series champs. Buehler's 15-4 with a 2.49 ERA, topping 200 innings for the first time in his career. But after in August that saw him go 2-1 in 6 starts, team went 5-1 with a 1.56 ERA and an opponent slash line of 179, 252, 283. That's a 534 OPS. He struggled when the calendar turned to September, going 1-2 in his first 4 starts. The team went 1-3, including a 6-3 loss to the Giants, where he allowed 6 runs, all earned in 3 innings. That's his first 4 starts resulted in a 7.32 ERA and opponents having a slash line of 317, 359 OPS. A September stretch like that was obviously something the Dodgers could not afford as they're trying to catch the Giants. But Buehler seemed to find his August groove in his final September start, throwing 7 shut innings of 3-out ball in LA's 2-1 win over the Padres in the opener of that 3-game series Tuesday night, allowing the Dodgers to keep pace with the Giants, who beat Arizona in the opener of that 3-game series. Buehler looked like the guy who's been lights out for the Dodgers in October, where he has a 2.35 career ERA over 61 in the 3rd innings. Look, with Cy Young candidates Max Scherzer, what he's done since coming to LA has been ridiculous, and NL wins leader Julio Urias, plus Tony Gonsolin and Hall of Famer Clayton Kershaw accompanying Buehler, the Dodgers have the staff to make another deep postseason run. They're still the NL favorite, so if they have to play the Cardinals, whomever they send to the mound gives them a great chance to win. That being said, we all know they'd rather catch the Giants, win the division, and avoid that scenario.
Yeah, nobody wants a piece of the Cardinals at this point. There was the 17 in a row going into tonight. Nobody wants to play the Cardinals. Like that is like literally that is a 1-game playoff nightmare scenario. So the run up to the NL West.
It just sucks that matchup, whoever it's going to be, whether it's Dodgers Cardinals or Giants Cardinals, the fact that that's only going to be 1 game instead of a full series sucks for baseball fans.
Yeah, it reminds me of 2015 when the NL Central had the same issue when you had the Cubs and the Pirates over 95 wins in a 1-game playoff, and the Cardinals had 100 wins sitting at home. They got to extend the division, this wild card round. I mean, I was an advocate last year of a best of 3. I'm still a proponent for it this year. I just feel like 1 game is not enough. It's not enough.
Agreed.
It's definitely an injustice when you win 100 games.
Yep. And Rabbi, the Cardinals are in danger of losing. That's 17.
Well, they have nothing to play for. They have absolutely nothing to play for. They clinched the wild card spot last night.
Yeah.
They went from 71-69 to 88-69. 17-game winning streak, which is probably again going to end tonight. They're down 4-0 to the Brewers.
The Brewers in the bottom of the 8th. Yep.
Longest major league winning streak since Cleveland's 22 in a row in 2017. That team ended up losing to the Yankees, by the way, in the opening round. So big winning streak does not a postseason team make.
Nope.
But how about Adam Wainwright? 40 years old, 17-7. That's a damn good one. And obviously, again, this is a team that Jay earlier in the year said was a lead pipe lock to win the NL Central. They didn't win the NL Central, but when you have Paul Goldschmidt on this team and you have Nolan Arenado, who's only been to the playoffs twice in his career and will do it in his first season in St. Louis. He's hit 34 home runs this year. Team is dangerous. Team is very, very dangerous. Again, I don't know how they would do in a 5-game series going up against a team like the other LA and San Francisco. By the way, 2 things I want to get to before we get to football. You're talking about the shame of those 2 teams fighting in a 1-game playoff. How about the shame of a possible LA-San Francisco NLDS between 2 100-win teams in the first round? I'm okay with it, by the way, because, win your division. That's what you're supposed to do in baseball. Win your damn divisions. It means something.
It does.
But this is the Cardinals are just an interesting story of themselves. They're the Cardiac Cardinals. You can never kill them. Every single year they seem to make the playoffs. Again, they were given up for dead. Everybody thought it was going to be the Reds or the Padres in that spot, and it's not. It's the Cardinals winning that second wild card again. One more thing. As much as we've talked about how disappointing the Mets are in 2021, the Padres being 77-78 right now, considering how they were supposed to be this season, how they were supposed to be the big bad team to fight the Dodgers, must be kind of humiliating to them and really is making this team look like a complete joke.
Well, Rabbi, the projection is that if you look at it, the Giants and the Padres have basically flipped roles. The Giants were supposed to be the Padres, and the Padres were supposed to be the Giants in terms of what we're seeing now. So, nobody saw the Giants doing this.
Yeah.
Not like this. It's amazing.
Padres, it has to be mentioned on this. How about Melanie Newman and Jessica Mendoza, first all-female ESPN duo, is calling this game tonight. So congrats to them.
Yep. Well
done. And just the great stuff that's happened in basketball lately. Bucks hiring a female announcer in Lisa Byington. Your Sixers hiring a female local announcer in Kate Scott. And the Jazz hiring Holly Rowe as an analyst. It's a damn good year.
Utah, how you?
Doris Burke finally has some good company.
Yes. All right. Time to go to New York and time to go to football. So sorry, guys. On to the New York Giants. 3 winnable games to start the season in my mind. And now I realize why my mind is not such a terrible damn thing to win. The latest, another at the buzzer loss for a second straight week. This time the made field goal went against them, against the Falcons in a 17-14 game. And now that put the G-men, the G stands for not great, at 0-3 again. Let's get the questions going on with number 1. Jay, find me a damn positive in this game that needs to continue as the Giants head into the Big Easy.
It's Daniel Jones's efficiency in offense. Jones was 24 of 35. That's almost 69% completion, 266 yards through the air, 8 carries, 39 yards on the ground. That's 4.9 yards a carry. Another efficient performance. No touchdowns by either route after having one of each in the first 2 games of the season, but he had no turnovers, was only sacked twice, and yet the Giant offense, other than the Washington game, continues to struggle to put up points. And whereas last season, You can point the finger at Jones for some of the Giants' losses. You really can't do that so far this season. Unfortunately, he's being asked to carry this Giants offense, something he might be capable in small doses, but not, on the scale he's being asked at the moment. But it would be easier for him to do so if the O-line and his playmakers were more consistent. Losing both Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton to hamstring injuries on Sunday won't help matters, especially if Shepard is out for an extended period of time, as he's clearly Jones's go-to receiver. But more and more, it seems like the issue is both Joe Judge and Jason Garrett being ultra-conservative with their play calling. They're playing not to lose, and they've become so concerned with turnover prevention when it comes to Jones that they've taken away his ability to make plays. Check out these two stats, guys. During his breakout 2019 season in Detroit, Kenny Gallaudet, big offseason free agent acquisition, brought in to be the Giants' number one wide receiver. He had an average depth of target of 16.1 yards. Almost 32% of his targets were on throws of 20 yards or more. This season, Gallaudet's average depth of target is 14.2 yards, and only 10.5% of his targets have been on throws of 20 yards or more. Jones, who was pretty solid as a deep passer last season, has only 7 attempts of 20 yards or more this season. That's just 6.7% of his total attempts. As a rookie in Pat Shurmur's offense in 2019, Jones threw 20 yards or more on almost 12% of his attempts. He's shown he can make explosive plays in the passing game. He's just not really being allowed to try so far this season, at least not with any regularity, and it's negatively impacting the Giants' offense to put points on the board. With the issues that this offense is having, asking Jones to regularly direct lengthy drives is not a recipe for success, so they need to get chunk plays through the air. And it also doesn't help that they rank 27th in the league in red zone scoring percentage, and their 3 red zone touchdowns are tied for 26th. Not a new problem, as we all know. The Giants were 25th in red zone scoring percentage and 31st in red zone TDs last season. Some of that is lack of creativity, imagination, and just plain being risk adverse to the extreme. It doesn't help that Garrett's scheme has route concepts that call for receivers to come back towards the line of scrimmage, cutting down their ability to create yards after Jones gets them the ball. Giants average 2.5 yards after the catch. That's dead last in the NFL. You want a comparison? The offense that Kyle Shanahan runs with the 49ers leads the league with an average of almost 8 yards after the catch. You can argue all you want about, 2021's too small a sample size, only been 3 weeks. Giants were last in yards after the catch in the NFL last season with a tick under 4. Guys, it's time to take the shackles off Daniel Jones. Let this kid try and make plays. If he throws an interception here or there, so be it. If it also results in more of the type of big plays that this offense needs. And Jason Garrett might want to let Jones roam the offense with more of an up-tempo pace. Add some designed, zone read quarterback runs to really take advantage of Jones's ability with his legs. Those zone read plays, guys, have produced runs of 34, 49, 46, and 80 yards over the past 2 seasons. Adding more run-pass options would also help Jones. He ran an RPO-heavy offense at Duke, so he's comfortable making those reads, and he's made plays on them when he's run them so far this season. Utilizing more zone read runs and RPOs gives Jones options and takes the burden off of an offensive line that has struggled from needing to protect him on standard dropbacks. You can't play not to lose in the NFL. If you do, you're pretty much guaranteed not to win, no matter how efficient Daniel Jones plays.
I would say Daniel Jones has been pretty good this year. I would easily take him over any of the 5 rookie quarterbacks that came out this year, well, the 4 that are playing right now. Yep. And again, 2 things. Also, number 1, he's throwing to Colin Johnson. If you don't know who Colin Johnson is, that's okay. I didn't know until I did my research on him because I was watching Red Zone most of Sunday to avoid watching the New York Giants play. And, Evan Ingram, the only person who Giants fans actually cheer when he's out of the game. And I haven't seen them actually do that too much. Anthony, you get the easiest question known to mankind. Find a negative for the Giants that needs to be fixed. Only one.
Well, it's always missed opportunities. That's pretty much what it is. Mistakes. You saw it at Washington. The drop pass, the the penalty on the missed field goal. We see time and time again the Giants beat themselves again on Sunday on a day where the defense only gave up 17 points. You should win that game, no, without question. But look at here's a list of some of the things that happened on Sunday. On the Giants' opening drive, they get the second and goal from the 8-yard line, and Daniel Jones is sacked, was knocked up for an 11-yard loss. You have to set up for a field goal. On the Giants' next scoring drive, when they get third and goal from the 19-yard line, they only got 12. This leads to the first field goal. On the second drive, they gave up a sack and a bad snap that led to another field goal. That's 6-0. Now, on the defensive side, Xavier McKinley gets called for a personal foul that aided the Falcons' full scoring drive that allowed them to take a 7-6 lead into halftime. And then Evan Ingram, as you mentioned, and I'm starting to feel bad for the kid. I mean, he has a lot of potential. He seems like a really nice person. But, man, I mean, when the ball hits the wrong part of his body, what happened to be his hands, things happen, and not in a good way for the Giants. His first target was low and incomplete. He gets booed mercifully. He makes a catch and fumbles right away. And thankfully for him, it did not lead to any more points for the Falcons as the Giants were able to force a turnover but going to the half. You talk about Joe Judge and timeouts and squandering timeouts and on unnecessary challenges. They lost a timeout due to a challenge that really wasn't necessary, and also spent 2 timeouts on defense in the second half that could have really helped them as far as being able to stop the clock and try to preserve time late in the game when the Falcons are driving downfield. Also, on top of that, when you think about the defense, not losing Blake Martinez for the season is a huge loss for this defense that had been underachieving the first 2 weeks of the season. And on that last drive, and I gotta put some of the onus on Patrick Graham as far as his play call last week. The last show, as we was going off the air, in Washington, I talked about how he was playing too soft in coverage and allowed Washington to dink and dunk their way in the field goal range. And on the last opening drive, the last drive in Atlanta, you saw missed tackles on a very first play from the 25-yard line, and it gave up a big play. It only took 2 plays for the Falcons to get in the field goal range. And you start wondering, this is a team that's done a better job of beating themselves than beating their opponents. And you look at the schedule, they have the toughest schedule left in this season in the NFL, and it does not get any easier going to New Orleans with the Saints being back home for the first time really in almost 2 months because of because of the hurricane and being displaced for a number of weeks. I don't see any wins for the Giants really moving forward. This schedule gets madly difficult going over the next month.
You talk about that, and to me that dovetails, with the way you said it, the way Patrick Graham is making, defensive play calls and decisions, the way Jason Garrett is making offensive play calls and decisions, the way Joe Judge is making game management decisions, and it's kind of gotten around the league that he's prone to being conservative, and it gives opposing coaches a little bit of leeway, knowing they don't have to be, overly aggressive or gamble too much because they know that Judge is more likely to go, then, go for it, a la Brandon Staley and the Chargers, the way they went for it against the Chiefs. Talk about 2 diametrically opposed, philosophies of coaching. One gets you a win against one of the best teams in the NFL. The other has you at 0-3 in 3 games, Rabbi, as you said. They woulda, coulda, shoulda, but didn't win.
And it has to be mentioned, Adoree Jackson and Logan Ryan, the two guys that the Giants brought in as free agents that really supposed to solidify the defensive backfield. A drop interception that should have ended a drive. A pass interference call in the end zone that allowed Atlanta to take the lead. These are veteran players, especially Logan Ryan. He's played on Super Bowl teams. To make these kind of mental errors, it's just just unbelievable. And it comes down to coaching and discipline. And right now, the Giants are not showing that on either side of football.
Nope.
We have holding penalties costing big plays and
This
defensive penalties.
Anthony, this is probably the least disciplined I've seen a Giants team in a long, long time to start the season. They always start every season slow, and this is what you get. And you're not going to be in contention, Anthony, towards the end of the year if you're playing like this. And with this schedule, I don't know where wins are coming right now for the New York Giants. You just need one win to get yourself back on the drawing board. But the Saints are next, and this is a tough matchup for the Giants. But they've had a lot of success over the years because I believe Daniel Jones' first victory in the NFL was against Jameis Winston. He was a Buck back then.
That's right.
Obviously, he is a Saint right now. This is kind of sort of Jameis Winston 2.0 for the Saints. His numbers the first 3 weeks, remember, this is a guy who was in the 30-30 club and it was always threw for 5,000 yards in a season. First 3 weeks, 14 for 20 for 148, 11 for 22 for 111, 13 of 21 for 128. He's been sacked 7 times already, most of that in that Carolina game. And you found out when you get pressure on Jameis Winston, he's prone to bad mistakes. He's not fumbled the ball this year at all, which is a big plus for him. He's only thrown 2 interceptions in 63 attempts. That's not too bad. He's still very tentative in this offense. It makes you seem like you realize how much the Saints miss Drew Brees because a lot of the people, the one thing that Drew had, even though he didn't have the arm, was the ability to make the right play at the right time and find out where the player was going to be. But this team is still a little gun shy. This team is still is looking for the right pieces. They're still looking for Traquan Smith to come back from injury. And obviously they're waiting for Michael Thomas to come back from injury as well. But it was actually said by Drew Brees himself because someone gave him a platform to talk on NBC. And he said that Winston is new to the offense and so is the supporting cast. You need experienced players to get into the mix so the whole unit's confidence can take a boost. And you would think Jameis has played so within the bounds of Sean Payton's offense. But if you saw the touchdown that he had last week against the Patriots, where almost anybody else should have gotten that interception, it was one of those, how the hell did he do that type of plays that Jameis is always...
You and I both know if he's still wearing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers uniform, it would have been intercepted.
It would have easily been intercepted. And it was against the Patriots, for God's sakes, a team that should be on the ball when it comes to defense. I don't know. Jameis Winston sometimes feels like he has 9 lives out there. As a player, by the way, that the Giants have really done well against. This iteration of the Giants going into New Orleans on Sunday, though, I don't know. Saints need to keep up with the Bucs and the Carolina Panthers, who are doing very good job. That's a very tough division. NFC South is the best division, not named a West.
Thank you.
Because they're really good. But the Saints are still the Saints at certain points, and Sean Payton is still Sean Payton. This is going to be a very tough matchup for the Giants, but you get to Jameis, you might have a shot. I know you had that Kamara guy who is very tough to tackle, but you're not going to see a 38-35 game like you did. You're not going to see a shootout like you did the last time the Saints and Giants played in New Orleans.
No, I mean, you hit it on the head. To me, it's this simple. If the Giants get to Jameis, they have a chance to win. If they don't get to him, he's going to shred them.
Yeah, they can't. I think one of the keys is going to be Albert Kamara. Not really has a run up, but has a receiver out of the backfield. And the Giants have shown the inability to make tackles. And Kamara's in the open field, you can't tackle him. And this is where Crowder filling in, being kind of the defensive signal caller, is going to be key. And not having Blake Martinez, who is a tackling machine for the most part on defense. But that's going to be a key matchup because Kamara out in open space is just as dangerous. Has a receiver lined up in the slot that is getting a handoff coming out of the backfield. The Giants do very well at stopping the run. It's against the pass and making the tackle that is what the Giants have struggled.
What's going to be interesting for me, guys, is to see if with Martinez out, and you talk about Crowder, if under passing situations and in sub packages, Graham removes Crowder and he puts Jabril Peppers as an actual linebacker, basically just shifting him over from the box safety role he plays so often under passing situations to improve their coverage, both against Kamara, either coming out of the backfield in the slot or tight ends coming over the middle. It allows them to play McKinney, who they really like, as in the defensive backfield, and puts more of their best skilled players, regardless of position, on the field at the same time.
Yeah. This is going to be an uphill battle for the
uphill battle. We're contractually obligated, so let's just get through.
I know this is just going to be an uphill battle for the Giants this weekend. They're on the border of irrelevancy right now. Not even at the border of disappointment, the border of irrelevancy. Speaking of irrelevant, next up is the Jets, who this is an even sadder stat. They've gone 18-49 since 2017. That's the worst record in that time. It's tied, though, with another team, the Giants. That's right. It's up to you, New York, not to suck, and we've kind of failed the ball with that miserably.
Right.
Hell, we should just do what everybody else does. They technically play in New Jersey. The Buffalo Bills technically play in New York. We could do a Bills update every single week. Okay. The Jets lost 26-0. 26-0 to the surprising Broncos last Sunday. They've also beaten the Giants, the Jets, and the Jaguars. So let's not throw the party for
the
Denver
Broncos have been successful for me as a suicide pick.
They've been successful as a suicide pick, but they're almost like the opposite of the Raiders, the first team to actually win their first 3 games against 10+ win teams for that first 3 seasons.
And I had them as my other suicide pick this past weekend.
That was a good pick. Can't find a positive in my eyes that needs to continue for the Jets, but Jay, you've been tasked with it. Go ahead.
I got to tell you, fellas, I had to really dig to find some sunshine hidden behind the ridiculous amount of clouds that was the Jets' performance against the Broncos. But Quinnen Williams getting 1.5 sacks, his first sacks of the season, was all I could come up with. As much as the offense had struggled through the first 2 weeks, the defense at least seemed to be headed in the right direction. That all went out the window against Denver again, Williams aside. When the Broncos were able to keep the Jets defensive tackle out of their backfield, Teddy Bridgewater shredded them, going 19 of 25 for 235 yards in the air. The team ran for 121 yards on the ground. And if not for Javonte Williams fumbling at the 1-yard line, this would have been a 33-0 blowout. There were personal fouls from Shaq Lawson and Marcus May. Brandon Echols was flagged for defensive pass interference. Bryce Hall got burned on a deep ball. You talk about sloppy and undisciplined regarding the Giants defense. This is about as sloppy and undisciplined as we've seen the Jets defense be this season. Again, overshadowing that first good game from Q. If Williams can continue to make that kind of impact and the rest of his defensive mates can get back on track with their play, then Gang Green will at least have a chance to be competitive, even if the offense continues to struggle. The Jets D ranks in the top half of the NFL in points allowed, 14th, and yards allowed, 10th, but they spend way too much time on the field, opponents' drives ending in a score, 47.1%. The league average is 38.3. I tell you guys, no matter how often Williams gets to opposing quarterbacks or how well they play overall, this team's going to keep coming up short until their offense starts scoring more than 6.6 points per game.
I'm going to give you one positive.
You got another one?
At least, yeah. I'm going to give you another positive. At least the Jets can blame it on the fact that their offensive line is missing Mekhi Becton, and not because their coach put in an inane game plan that allowed a rookie quarterback to have to deal with protection of only 5 guys through pretty much 1.5 quarters. Are you listening, Matt Nagy? That's why that's a positive.
Well,
anyway.
Rabbi, look, Matt Nagy hasn't done Justin Fields any favors in Chicago.
No.
And I got to tell you, I'll tell you this, and we can kind of come back and end this because this will be an interesting topic to kind of go out on. The way both Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson have played. I'd kind of like to circle back to this and get y'all's take on how the impatience of owners and fan bases about
we'll talk about that in a second.
Rookie quarterbacks right into the fire instead of letting them learn a little bit.
Let's talk about that in a second. But Anthony, again, easy choice. Pick a bad thing. One bad thing.
Yeah, for the Bishop Sycamore Jets. On offense, I have to go with Matt. I have to go with the offensive coordinator, and that has to be Mike LaFleur. And look,
Mike LaFleur.
When you're averaging 6 points a game on offense in the National Football League, that is putrid. That is disgustingly bad. They've had a field goal in 6 quarters. That is it. That has been the offense. Only Mike LaFleur has managed to do the impossible. He made Adam Gaines look like an offensive genius through 3 games in this season. Look, he called just 13 run plays on Sunday. 13. And this is when the Jets were actually hanging around at some point. The spot put up a goose egg on offense. Then you talk about the play calling. You have a mobile, agile quarterback in Zach Wilson, and you don't call a rollout play, some RPO, something that will at least enable, or at least, and I actually talked to a friend of mine on this. He's a sports guy too. Both fellow Hofstra alumni, and he agreed with me. And I said this: the problem with coaches is that they're so busy trying to get their scheme to work, they don't exactly take advantage of the talent they have and what they can do. And with Zach Wilson, I feel like LaFleur has not been able to figure out how to use his athleticism at all whatsoever. You have probably a very agile quarterback, and there was 2 plays, 2 short yardage situations that made me tone the game off immediately. I was so happy, and I mean so happy, that I have NFL Red Zone on Sunday because I could not watch any more of the Jets Broncos. It was a 3rd and 2 and a 4th and 1, and you decide to set your running back in motion, 5 wide receivers, basically the Broncos with a Hall of Fame defensive lineman and Von Miller, and another guy, Bradley Chubb, and a very good defense. You pretty much have to know you're passing the ball on 3rd and 4th and short. You don't even try to give the hint that you may actually run the ball. Your offensive line is already bad, and you decide to put your very, very hittable quarterback in a position where he has no protection at all because he has 5 wide receivers and no running backs to even pick up a blitzer at the worst case scenario. Wow. This is what happened on the 4th and 1. An errant pass that almost got his receiver decked, and on top of the fact that the receiver dropped the pass. It's like a combination of all of the above, but it starts at the offense. It starts with the coaching. I don't know what LaFleur is thinking. Look, he's a rookie. He's a 34-year-old coordinator. He stepped into, he had a big shoes to fill considering the Jets the last few years. And I know, Rabbi, I know you're dying to jump in, and I'd like you to floor to you in a second, but for the love of Pete, pull Zach, and Jay, you are a quarterback, pull Zach Wilson to the side during a meeting and ask him, what plays do he want to run? What do he like? What do he don't want to do? You don't want to get your rookie quarterback killed before the second half of the season begins.
Yeah.
And can his receivers help him out a little bit? Catch the ball. They lead the league and drop.
Especially by Corey Davis. I mean, come on.
Yeah, they lead the league with drops at 8, and it should have been more than that. I don't even know who. I think somebody fell asleep keeping track of this because I count more.
Because they were watching the game. That's why they fell asleep keeping track of it.
Anthony, you and I talked about this in the production meeting, and I said it's a bad combination when you're pairing a rookie coordinator. This is LaFleur's first time calling plays. You pair that with a rookie quarterback, and behind an offensive line that was struggling even before Becton got hurt. Here's the thing that stands out for me. You're talking about those 2 short yardage situations with LaFleur. emptying the backfield, calling 5 wide, and trying to make it as a pass. He's trying to implement and run Kyle Shanahan's offense. Okay. Shanahan's offense, as we know, is predicated on having a good ground game leading to play action passing. You look at the way Jimmy Garoppolo runs it. Why are you, and you're coming off a game where you ran for well over 100 yards on the ground behind Michael Carter, your rookie running back. Why are you going away from the running game? Granted, look, I know Vic Fangio is a defensive genius. I mean, he plays the same defense that Brandon Staley does, and it's a really tough one with all their they don't show anything pre-snap. The safeties change movement, guys change movement, coverages in fronts change at the snap or right at the snap, which is really confusing to throw, for a rookie quarterback to try and diagnose. So with that in mind and knowing that, how do you have to simplify the game plan for him? Like you said, find out what he's comfortable with and take that into account, but also keep things as simple as possible. Don't ask him to try and make too many reads, because I tell you, guys like Fangio, oh, they love it when they have a rookie quarterback on the other side of the line.
RG3 talked about Lamar Jackson's rookie experience. Give Zach Wilson a play caller on his wrist, something that makes him comfortable when he's calling the plays. Make him read it. At least the rest of the huddle knows what he's talking about, and simplify the offense a little bit. It just seems like you're trying to run a system with personnel you don't have right now.
Right, and that's the thing.
It's getting Zach Wilson beat up in the backfield.
Right, and look, as I said to you guys in training camp, Kyle Shanahan's offense is very quarterback friendly, but that friendliness is more apparent when you have a veteran quarterback running it. You look at Garoppolo again in San Francisco. The Niners winning percentage, you can bash him all you want for the Super Bowl, but the Niners winning percentage with him under center compared to anyone else, there's a ridiculous difference. Mike LaFleur, the other LaFleur, his brother, who's now the head coach and the play caller in Green Bay, running Kyle Shanahan's offense, but he has one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time as the trigger man. It's a quarterback friendly offense, but you can't. But asking a rookie quarterback to try and run it with a rookie play caller is not a recipe for success.
Absolutely not. By the way, Jay is just jealous that of trying a passing play on a 4th and 1 when his team is trying a basic running play on a shovel pass on a 4th and 10. So it's interesting, the dichotomy of those two decisions right there.
Rabbi, I railed at that decision also. So.
And you still have now. So I just wanted to bring back the dichotomy of the two things. I mean, it's a cheap shot. I just thought it was kind of funny.
Hey,
okay.
You can't say I'm not consistent with my analysis, no matter.
You're absolutely consistent. We talked about that already. Okay. So Derrick Henry and the Titans are in town, and it's really just Derrick Henry and the Titans.
That's one of my other thoughts for suicide this week, guys.
Well, we can talk about that later on. Henry was only had 58 yards on 17 attempts in the first game against Arizona. Everyone declared him dead, and then he rushes 100 for 182 with 3 touchdowns at Seattle, and then throws in another 113 yards against Indianapolis. Another year where he's leading the league right now in yards, 353, and touchdowns 3. But note this, he's already caught 12 passes this year, and Henry has never been a pass catcher. The highest number
figuring out how to I bashed Todd Downing after that first week, the way he had a bad game in his first game as the offensive coordinator, replacing Arthur Smith. And I talked about how if he can't get it right, you're going to see how Smith's departure negatively impacts the Titans. But he seems to have figured it out and, figuring out ways to get Derrick Henry involved in the passing game. I got it.
You could be catching on pace to catching 68 passes this season, which is by far.
Week 1, I got to give him props for this past week.
He has the weapons, and even though A.J. Brown might not play this game, he's an injured. with Derrick Henry, he opens up the offense, and we've seen the Jets have not been able to stop running backs this year.
No,
I know we did. This is another exception. I can't see the Jets winning here.
No,
and Derrick Henry is just been a beast again. Very would have obviously the Titans are probably going to win the AFC South. Two teams are already 0-3 in that division, and the team that's not is the Houston Texans, who are starting Davis Mills at quarterback for God's sakes because they have to, and they don't want to play Deshaun Watson.
There you go.
So,
Rabbi, you want to do a Bills update? You know what the spread is of that Bills Titans game?
17.5, unless
Okay,
it's moved up.
it's gone up
then.
since I last looked. When I saw it the other day, it was minus 16.5.
Okay, then they brought it down a little bit. Okay, so before we go, we have a few minutes. Jay brought it up. Rookie quarterbacks this year, not counting Trey Lance, who's scored 2 touchdowns himself for San Francisco in situations, but he's only been on the field for like 6 snaps. Rookie quarterbacks are 1-11 this year in the NFL. Mac Jones, who is about to be very, very killed by Tom Brady this week. Did you know they were playing? Trevor Lawrence, who looks as green behind the ears as anybody. Zach Wilson, who obviously is over there. I said 1-11. I'm sorry, it's 1-9 because Justin Fields just played his first professional game and started. I'll get to Fields in a second, but Jay, rookie quarterbacks were the thing, and right now, none of them look like they're ready for the NFL.
And here's the thing. And look, it's unfortunate because the NFL has become such a win now. We drafted a quarterback, with our number 1 pick. We believe this guy's the face of the franchise. The fans, you're bringing in this guy who had such a fantastic college career. So he's got all this hype, but everybody forget the fans want him to play because they look at him and they see the savior. The media's written it up that way. Great camps and, add to the hype that's not real. And you put these kids in a position and look at what it is. Trevor Lawrence does not have a good offensive scenario in Jacksonville.
And no offensive line.
There you go.
Dying.
As you said, Rabbi, Nagy has not done a good job of he's done Justin Fields no favors with that offensive scheme and the way what positions he's put him in. Mac Jones is in probably a slightly better situation, and he's played slightly better than his 3 classmates of the draft. But he's made mistakes that have cost the Patriots games, though on a lesser scale so far. And as we talked about Wilson, the kid's lucky his head's still attached to him with the beating he is taking. He's on pace to get sacked 86 times. And that's surpassing David Carr's record. So here's my thing with this. And everybody says, you got to play him. Why? I'm not saying you got to bake like Aaron Rodgers and sit him for 4 years, holding a clipboard behind Brett Favre. But let's come back to the very recent past. Patrick Mahomes, who the Chiefs traded up to get because they thought so highly of him. He was their guy, not Deshaun Watson. He was their guy. Okay. Did they throw him into the fire? No. Did everybody know that he had more physical talent than Alex Smith? Yeah. But what did Andy Reid do? Alex Smith before he got hit that devastating injury and, retired, Smith was a competent, solid NFL quarterback who could win you games. Not every day. It's not going to be a guy who carries your offense and puts up, tier 1 quarterback numbers. But this is a guy who makes the right calls, gets the ball to the right players, doesn't make mistakes, understands the game, has the high IQ that you want. And he efficiently ran Andy Reid's offense. Patrick Mahomes had the benefit of sitting back, of watching, of being in that quarterback room without the pressure of having to be, the next great franchise quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs. He learned from Reid. He learned from Smith, and he very much credited the lessons he learned from Smith in the 1 year they spent together as accelerating his learning curve to the point where when he finally stepped on to take over as the starting quarterback, the game did not seem so fast to him. He was able to acclimate better, and he was able to step in and do the job and be the guy you're seeing now. because look, I didn't see him being who he is. I thought, based on where he was coming from, but I can't say it enough. I don't believe that throwing these guys into the fire right off the bat is the right way to go, especially since the bulk of them are coming to bad teams with bad offensive lines, maybe not enough playmakers, maybe a bad defense on the other side of the ball. It doesn't do them any good. The only reason I think Mac Jones might actually get ahead of the other guys in this class is because the organization as a whole of the New England Patriots is a more stable organization. Belichick has a track record. Josh McDaniels has a track record. Yeah, he may not have the greatest playmakers around him right now, but look, they're gonna go and find guys for him to throw to, find guys for him to give the ball off to. They're going to improve the line. They're going to get better on defense because that's Belichick. Okay, so he's probably in the best situation, but he's still going to struggle this year. Okay. I never understood the reasoning behind not having a bridge guy. I mean, hell, Justin Herbert wasn't supposed to start. He was supposed to do an internship holding a clipboard behind Tyrod Taylor, who is another, usable, serviceable NFL quarterback.
He's a top 32 quarterback. Let's just say that right now.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and I've never understood why you put a guy in that situation. And for all the people who were clamoring for Justin Fields to start because of all the hype that was associated with him about how high he was drafted, I'm sorry. In the situation that they're in, Andy Dalton was the better choice for them to start. And I agreed with that starting. The fact that he's hurt and they don't have a choice now and there's no going back, I get it, but it's not doing Fields any favors. Trevor Lawrence is not being done any favors. They should have kept Minshew, let him keep the starting job, and let Lawrence learn for a year. The NFL is played at a different level and a different speed than the college game. I don't care at what level you've played it. There is a difference.
Well, yeah. The problem that – hold on. I want to kind of retort to this one myself.
Yeah.
The problem is every year is different. We saw Joe Burrow last year go to a team that's worse than the Jaguars, and the only reason he didn't really have a successful season was because his offensive line was terrible. But he was ready to play day one. We saw Herbert. He was ready to play day one, even though he wasn't supposed to play day one. They were in better situations.
Right, exactly.
However, you can take all of these situations in different vacuums very quickly, and then I'll get to you, Anthony. In Trevor Lawrence's case, it's a horrible offensive line and a horrible coach who just doesn't know how to coach a pro team. And again, He's not in any situation to win, and he's basically being treated like Peyton Manning 1998. And you had Gardner Minshew as that quarterback. So
and I got to tell you, Rabbi, add to it, Travis Etienne, his college backfield mate, who would have given him some sense of a security blanket. The kid goes down with an injury. He's out for the year. That doesn't help either.
Wilson, you needed a veteran backup. Very simple as that. You had to basically throw him to the fire after you didn't hire a veteran backup.
Yeah, I mean,
he couldn't have been the savior that first year.
You need a Bobby Hoyer type.
You needed something. I mean,
if not to play Rabbi, at least to be in that quarterback room.
Yeah,
for that to be
that's the problem
for that kid.
That was the problem in that situations. We could go with Fields we could go to Fields until we're blue in the face. But as Dan Orlovsky said on Monday, which was perfectly fine, and he used one of your best lines ever, he should be fired based on due negligence or intentional putting Fields in harm's way. Justin Fields threw the ball with minimum protection 13 times out of 20. I don't care if you're a rookie quarterback and you have and you are in a situation, you can't do that. You're basically throwing your team to the wolves, especially against one of the best defenses in the NFL. Mac might be fine, but the man can't throw beyond 20 yards if his life depended on it. And that's something you kind of need to do in the game, and you don't have the wide receivers to do it either. All of them could easily have sat on the bench. Yes. I just don't know what the best situation is. Again, Jay, it goes year to year.
Oh,
we have rookies who are ready to play this year. This year, it's different.
Yeah, and as you said, Rabbi, you look at guys like Herbert was in came to a better situation. Okay, the Chargers had a solid running game and they had a good defense to surround him with. You talked about who's the other one from last year? Burrow came in. You're right. His situation. The fact that his offensive line could not protect him was made all the worse. But when the guy showed he was able to play, but then again, we saw that when he was in LSU with that last year in that offense, we knew he was ready to play at the next level. We knew he was going to go to a bad situation. He'd have to suffer through, some rough time. But I'll tell you this, and I said this on draft night where we saw multiple wide receivers wind up in teams where they played with their college quarterback. Jamar Chase and him together, that has definitely helped Burrow's situation. You have a guy you're familiar with throwing to, and that also helps your situation. You're right, Rabbi. It's where you get drafted, and it's what your situation is. And when you are and you know what? And I'm sorry, but owners of teams that are going to be bad, and they should know that they're going to be bad. At least the GM should know. You should not put your guy, the guy who's the future of your franchise, in a position where he's gonna get shell shocked, and that is what is happening to these kids this year.
Well, to be fair, that's what tanking. That's what the tanking discussion gets into it. So it's tough. It's tough that way.
Yeah. I saw this in the preseason. Like I was calling this. I was like, look, these guys look all great in the preseason, but they're playing against backups and playing against the basic defensive play call you could possibly see. It's going to be different when they step onto the field during a regular season game against full-time stars, against guys who've been in the league 10, 12 years, who have seen it all as far as what quarterbacks are going to throw at them. You got coordinators who have 7 days now to game plan for you. It's a different animal. And I will look at these television pundits and they're talking about, you got to play this kid, you got to play this guy, you got to play this guy.
Don't.
And I said, no, you do not. This guy is not. Like I looked at in the case of Justin Fields. I was like, no, he is not ready. Let him sit. I had been a small minority that thought starting Andy Dalton was a good idea, particularly in week 1, where you don't have a good offensive line. You don't have the weapons right now. Andy Dalton is a savvy veteran who can at least try to keep you competitive offensively. Let Justin Fields learn the playbook and go from there. However, we're in this win now. We got to draft it. We got to play right now mentality. And you seeing it. You're seeing it. You saw it with Zach Wilson. You see, like, it's a different thing when you see how a defense look on film compared to when you're lying across them and you actually see it for yourself with your own 2 eyes. And the defensive coordinator now knows, hey, guess what? You've never seen this before. We're going to throw everything at you. And you see, and in the case of Trevor Lawrence just looked completely lost in that first game against Houston. Yep. He didn't know what, and right now he doesn't look no way what Willie to expect. He's looking
better now.
No, he does.
Yeah, and I feel, like I said, I feel bad for some of these quarterbacks because of the hoopla and the hype during the preseason, and they get thrown in, and the fact that they really don't have much to work with as far as support, as far as any outside support. It's like they're literally being thrown to the wolves and learning trial by fire of what the National Football League is really all about. We are gone from 20 years ago where you draft the quarterback, he's going to sit for about a year or 2 and learn basically being a backup on the clipboard. We just don't do that anymore. We want these guys because we see like a case of like Matt Ryan, like you step on NFL and immediately get success in his rookie season, taking Atlanta to the playoffs. So in the case of, there are the rare cases where a rookie QB come in and it does work. Cam Newton is another guy who kind of stepped in as a rookie and played very well for Carolina. But far too often, you're seeing these quarterbacks really, like, they play Division 1A. In the case of Justin Fields, you're playing the Big Ten, and it's a little different. And in some cases, like with Zach Wilson, you didn't play a whole lot last year.
That's the thing. Guys actually playing. I mean, think about it. We've talked about this before. Trevor Lawrence and Clemson ran roughshod over the ACC. They didn't really have any challenges. When Fields was at Ohio State, who the hell did they really play? Nobody, really. The Big Ten was not a challenge for them. Not the way it used to be back in the day. Okay, like you said,
is this season either.
There you go. BYU did not really play, a ridiculous amount of competitive. These guys. The reason I gave Mac Jones more credit and felt he was more NFL ready, he played in the SEC. That is a gauntlet none of these other guys have run through. There is something,
and he's the only quarterback that's really played in a post-style offense in Alabama. So he seemed more prepared. He just don't have the personnel with New England right now to run that same kind of offense, and it kind of shows in the first 3 games.
Yeah, and Mac still hasn't really worked out his kinks and again, it's also just the marriage of coordinators. Like Josh McDaniels isn't really fit for a Mac Jones offense at this moment. And as Anthony said at the best point, Mike LaFleur does not mash up well right now with Zach Wilson. Mike wants to do too much, and Zach can't do it right now.
Nope.
All right. We'll see you next Thursday night. Yes, we will actually have a show next Thursday, October 9th, for another edition of On the Sports Lines.
Rabbi, if I'm correct, we will be at the quarter pole of the NFL season.
Yes, and we will be smack dab in the playoffs.
Could that possibly be a guest appearance by our pal Joe Tafaro?
We're also going to have baseball talk too, because it is DS talk. All right.
It is October.
So for Jay Kaplan, Anthony Strait, the Transformers that Anthony Strait's going to watch instead of watching anything else, Tom Clancy, Aroldis Chapman.
Don't like Tom Clancy.
Yes. No, I'm not. I'm just saying he's part of the show. Tom Clancy, the 103 days the Mets were in first place, that cat, the New York Giants and Jameis Winston, for Mike LaFleur and his play calling on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1, and for Matt Nagy. For all of those people, my name is Stephen Rabinowitz, and you know the socials by now. YouTube.com/OnTheSportsLines on demand, Facebook.com/OnTheSportsLines live, and
Owen at ONTH Sportsline. That's our Twitter handle for links to the show and other interesting sports tidbits and articles that we think you should be in the know about.
Good night and enjoy the fall of October. The leave thing, not the literal definition of it. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.